And when we talk about the open web, we're talking about the technologies like HTML and JavaScript that people use to make web pages that, unlike something like Flash, it's interesting we're using Adobe or Macromedia Breeze here, but those are technologies that you have to pay a license for, but more importantly, that if you want to extend and grow the usefulness of technology, you'd have to get permission from the company that made it. It's not the case with all the technologies that make up the web. So those are the core principles of openness and what they mean concretely. What's interesting is, I think those principles that are built around something very mundane, the technology that makes up the web and sits underneath the web, have actually built a culture on the web and a culture of media that reflects those same values and reflects the ideas of kind of remixability and do it yourself and all of those kind of things. And so, really the meaning of those things has gone much farther beyond the technology. And I think that's what's most interesting. And in the long run, helping people understand that it's those open technologies that underpin the internet that allow that culture to continue to thrive, and understanding how to take those values in other places is something that Mozilla cares a lot about, and certainly I care a lot about.
I wanted to just touch on I don't know if you heard what I was just saying, but I wanted to touch on your previous experience using a more traditional mode of media, such as film, documentary film, in promoting social change, compared with now your work using online technology, open source technology, and advocating for that. What are the parallels you can draw from your previous experience?
So, as the story, well, the beginning of, or the overview of the story is that I spent a long time doing community television before I got involved in doing things on the internet. And how that happened actually was because of punk rock, being a peace activist in the 80s, being a punk rock kid in the 80s, and really feeling that the means of communications, which were tough to get hold of other than a photocopier and a guitar, were really an important thing for people who wanted to make the world a better place. And so I really kind of saw myself as a media activist right from the time I was getting out of high school, and did a lot of stuff helping to set up and run different video collectives in Parkdale in the West End of Toronto in the late 80s and early 90s. And that was a lot of fun, and I learned a huge amount about people, about creativity. Many of the people I worked with went on to do really interesting things in media and on the internet. But ultimately, being stuck just with a local cable signal, or trying to get tapes around, or trying to use expensive old editing equipment was frustrating. The equipment and the distribution mechanisms were the wall that we hit, not the creativity and the community. And so already that ethos of DIY was there. I mean, you saw it both in the form of the videos, a lot of kind of cool early scratch videos that people were making and that I was making, as well as just in the kind of topics people picked, whether those were kind of the feminist collective She TV that I worked with, or environmental collective, This Island Earth, or lots of other people. Very cool stuff going on. But it really just didn't feel like we were having the reach or impact, and it felt like it was a lot of work for very little reach and impact. And so, that was something that was something I was still doing at the time that Mosaic, the first web browser, came out. And I had been online on bulletin board systems and in kind of global activist communities for years, since I guess probably about 1990. And when Mosaic came out and there were pictures there on the web screen and not just text flowing by, and then I'd actually seen early demos of something called See You, See Me that was probably almost as good as this video. It's like, wow. I should get the hell out of here and check out this internet thing. And it turns out that was the same year that Rogers bought McLean Hunter, and I was working for McLean Hunter, who still had a kind of an aging hippie running their community television division. He was the VP of community television. Yes, You See Me was better. And so, seeing Rogers coming and seeing the internet inviting, I ran screaming from the building. And have spent the last, I don't know, how many years is that? 15 years now doing internet stuff. And I guess, the difference all along, I've had different phases to my internet career, has been that kind of speed, ability to experiment, or ability to start anew, as well as the fact that the prevailing culture is one of do-it-yourself. It's taken for granted, and it is one of community. And so really trying to do stuff from a kind of DIY community perspective in television and video and with documentary film still felt like it was on the edge, still felt like it didn't have legitimacy. I remember when I left my job in commercial television to start working full time and in community TV, the guy who was my boss said, "What the hell are you doing? Like, why are you throwing your career away?" And so all those things that I had believed in and turned me on were the mainstream of the internet. And so, the result of that is things like Rabble.ca, which I helped to start, were able to get off the ground with very little money, and also have been able to kind of grow and innovate and regenerate very quickly. I mean, people like Wayne, who's there in the chat room, I don't know if he's there in Vancouver, have taken something like Rabble, taken Rabble in particular, to a whole new level that when we started it, we couldn't have imagined it becoming a video and radio station, essentially. And so, that whole community DIY culture, rapid iteration, is the thing that has changed. The thing that stayed the same is people's passion and desire to communicate, and people's creativity, and the fact that so many of us have it. The fact that it's not only those who can fight their way into professional artists or media jobs, or people who kind of can put up with the crap of old community television, just makes it that much more exciting. So I think same spirit amplified, and that's great, right? We never imagined that culturally we would kind of win this much. I think that's also something that is threatened. A lot of the things that we hear as kind of criticisms and backlash against the internet, I think, obviously there's legitimacy in anything that's new having problems, but I think a lot of it is kind of pushback against what community and DIY culture mean as when they start to become mainstream cultural values, ways of working.